Um minuto de silêncio respeitado em Tóquio. O Brasil jogando contra a seleção japonesa. Homenagem póstuma ao ex-vice-presidente da Federação Japonesa de Futebol, a última corrente do time do Brasil. Os dois times se preparando para o Mundial. Se enfrentaram também na preparação para o Mundial do Catar. No meio de 2022, o time brasileiro venceu por 1-0. O time do Tite venceu com um gol do Neymar.
Você sabe, Luiz, que em relação àquele amistoso de 2022...
Kamada mais uma vez. Seleção brasileira recua. Vem o Japão pela esquerda. Nakamura. Na habilidade. Bonita jogada, o cruzamento. Gastou ali o Nakamura, hein? Drible bonito, seu Ricardo.
Aquela pedalada, né? E ele é destro ainda. Levou para a linha de fundo. Teve uma regularidade. Tem o Alexandre que...
There are wins that flatter a team and wins that expose them, and Brazil's 2-1 victory over Japan in the round of 32 at NRG Stadium in Houston was very much the second kind. The five-time world champions came through, they're into the round of 16, and the result will go down in the record books exactly as a comeback win secured deep into stoppage time. But anyone who actually watched all 96 minutes will tell you this was a night that left Brazil with serious questions to answer, even as the scoreboard ultimately read in their favor. Brazil arrived at this knockout tie off the back of an unbeaten group campaign, having topped Group C with 7 points after opening with a draw against Morocco before following it up with comfortable 3-0 wins over both Haiti and Scotland. Vinicius Jr. had been the standout performer through the group stage, already sitting on 4 goals. While Neymar made his long-awaited first appearance of the tournament in the win over Scotland. On paper, this looked like a Brazil side hitting its stride at exactly the right moment heading into the knockout rounds. Japan, meanwhile, arrived with their own story of quiet, organized progress. The Samurai Blue had topped a tricky Group F campaign that included a 4-0 demolition of Tunisia, followed by hard-fought draws against both the Netherlands and Sweden, results that were enough to send them through as group winners. They came into this fixture missing Takefusa Kubo, who hadn't featured since the tournament opener, but Japan's coaching staff had clearly built a defensive structure that didn't depend on any single individual to function. As it turned out, that structure would cause Brazil more problems across 90 minutes than almost anyone outside the Japanese camp expected. It's worth pausing on just how unbroken Japan's recent World Cup streak has been, because it adds real weight to what they were chasing here. This marked their 8th consecutive World Cup appearance dating back to 1998, a run of remarkable consistency for a footballing nation that didn't even host its first edition of the tournament until co-hosting alongside South Korea in 2002. They'd reached the knockout stage on 5 of those 8 occasions, including back-to-back trips to the round of 16 in both 2018 and 2022. But a genuine breakthrough into the quarterfinals had always eluded them. Beating a 5-time champion in the round of 32 would have represented exactly that kind of historic breakthrough, and for long stretches of this match, it looked entirely within reach. From the opening whistle, Japan made their intentions clear, pressing aggressively high up the pitch and forcing uncomfortable moments in possession for a Brazilian side that, on paper, had every reason to expect a comfortable evening. Alisson was forced into a loose clearance inside the first minute that went straight into space for Japan to exploit, an early signal that this wouldn't be the procession many had predicted. Brazil did have spells of control, with Bruno Guimaraes orchestrating play through the middle and causing Japan some genuine concern with his distribution, but turning that possession into clear-cut chances proved to be an almighty struggle against a Japanese defense that collapsed into a disciplined low block whenever the situation called for it. Japan's reward for that defensive discipline arrived just before the half-hour mark, and it came from exactly the kind of opportunistic moment knockout football tends to punish teams for failing to avoid. Kaishu Sano capitalized on sloppy defending from both Danilo and Casemiro, who allowed a loose pass to fall into dangerous territory, and Sano drove forward before unleashing a strike from distance that beat Alisson and sent the Japanese end of NRG Stadium into raptures. It was a goal built on individual quality finishing off a defensive lapse, and for the next several minutes, Brazil looked genuinely rattled by the prospect of a first-half deficit against opposition many had expected them to brush aside. The remainder of the first half did little to ease the growing unease around Brazil's performance. Despite dominating the ball for long stretches, Carlo Ancelotti's side simply couldn't find a way to consistently break down a Japanese rearguard setup in a compact 5-at-the-back shape that left almost no space between the defensive and midfield lines. Brazil went into the break trailing 1-0, and by most honest assessments, deservedly so given how little penetration they'd managed to generate in the final third. Whatever was said in the Brazilian dressing room at halftime clearly had an effect, because the team that emerged for the second half looked noticeably sharper and more direct than the one that had struggled through the opening 45 minutes. The equalizer arrived in the 56th minute, and it came from an unlikely source making amends for his earlier defensive lapse. Gabriel Martinelli whipped in a quality cross from the left flank, and Casemiro rose above his marker to power a header beyond Japan's goalkeeper, leveling the score at 1-1 and giving Brazil's captain a measure of redemption after his role in conceding the opener. From there, the match settled into a tense, cagey battle, with Brazil controlling more of the territory but still finding it desperately difficult. As the 90 minutes ticked toward a close, it genuinely looked as though this tie was destined for extra time. Japan's defense, superb for the better part of 93 minutes, continued to repel everything Brazil threw at them, blocking a half-chance for substitute Endrick and clearing the resulting corner to safety without much fuss. But football has a habit of punishing even the smallest lapse in concentration at the worst possible moment, and deep into stoppage time, that's exactly what happened. Japan's Ao Tanaka lost possession in a dangerous area of his own third, and Brazil pounced immediately on the turnover. Bruno Guimaraes carried the ball forward, sold a convincing fake as though he was about to shoot himself, and instead slipped substitute Gabriel Martinelli through on goal. Martinelli kept his composure in a moment that would have rattled most players, opening up his body and rolling a low finish past the goalkeeper to complete the dramatic 2-1 comeback in the 96th minute, sending the Brazilian bench into delirious celebration and sealing passage through to the round of 16. Speaking afterward, Ancelotti was honest about how close the match had come to slipping away from his side, revealing that Martinelli had actually been planned as a substitute scheduled to enter much later in the match before the timing of the goal made that unnecessary. Casemiro, for his part, pointed to the squad's mentality and depth as the difference, praising the contributions of substitutes like Endrick and Ryan, who has been deputizing capably for the injured Rafinha throughout the tournament, while insisting this remains a squad capable of going all the way and lifting a 6th World Cup title. For Japan, the result extended a painful pattern that has now followed the national team across 5 of their 8 World Cup appearances, reaching the knockout stage only to fall at the very first hurdle, a stage they've now failed to get past despite genuine progress and growing respect on the international stage. Their head coach was visibly emotional in his post-match comments, acknowledging the heartbreak of exiting at this point once again while praising his players for everything they'd given throughout the tournament, and insisting the experience would be used to build an even stronger team going forward. What this match ultimately revealed about Brazil is more complicated than a simple celebration of survival. They have the individual quality, the squad depth, and the mental resilience to find a way through even when the performance level dips significantly below expectations, as Casemiro's own words made clear. But a first-half display that struggled to create anything meaningful against a well-drilled but hardly star-studded Japanese side will have given plenty of food for thought ahead of tougher knockout tests still to come. Brazil are through, and that's ultimately all that matters in a single elimination format. But as their own captain admitted afterward, there's real room for improvement if this team genuinely intends to go all the way and add a 6th star to their famous yellow shirt. There's also a broader lesson here about the unforgiving nature of knockout football at this level. Brazil's expected goals tally for the night sat at 1.72 compared to Japan's modest 0.23, numbers that on paper suggest a comfortable home win rather than the nerve-shredding finish that actually unfolded. That gap between underlying performance metrics and the lived reality of a 1-goal margin, decided in the very last kick of regulation time, captures exactly why knockout matches at a World Cup tend to be remembered far more vividly than almost anything from the group stage. A single moment of concentration lost by a Japanese defender who had been excellent for 93 minutes was enough to flip the entire outcome, and Brazil's depth, specifically the calm finishing of a substitute who barely got onto the pitch, was exactly what separated progression from a much more painful exit.